Chapter 4, Shiva Among Foreign Gods. On the next monthly Shivratri, Aswathama used bhang. He did not use it as an entertainment, he used it as a solvent. Bhang in his mind meant dissolution, the loosening of hard knot called I. In Buddhist language, one might speak of emptiness. In Advaita, unity with the Supreme. One sounded negative, one sounded positive, both pointed to the melting of separation. The fire rose, the ghats burned, Shiva came like a smoke becoming a man. You want Soma? Shiva said. Then first learn how gods travel. Aswathama listened. Some say I am eternal in this land, Shiva began. They link me with Rudra of Vedas. They cite Puranas, Upanishad, temples, lingas, mountains, and myths. Some tribal communities call me Sambhu and say that the polished forms came later. Some treat me as supreme. Some fold me into Vishnu. Some called me wild, marginal, outside the early courtly order. He smiled. And some say I came from elsewhere. Images appeared in the smoke. Osiris of Egypt, green skinned lord of death and renewal, Dionysus of Greece, wind crowded, followed by music and madness, Buddhist Avalokitesvara, lord of compassion, Mahadev forms in Himalayas, Tara, the mother who saves. Look carefully, Shiva said. Cultures do not sit in sealed boxes. Egypt, Mesopotamia, Persia, Bactria, Greek, Rome, Central Asia, India, all traded, fought, married, copied, adapted, and forget that they have adapted. Aswathama saw ships on the Red Sea, coins in Bactria, Greek forms on Indian stones, Kusana kings minting deities from many worlds, Buddhist art weaving Hellenistic ropes, Roman gods on the Malabar coast, Tamil ports smelling of paper and wine. Some seekers compare me with Osiris. Shiva continued. Both are linked to death, renewal, fertility, and powerful symbols. Some compare my forms with Dionysus or Bacchus. Dionysus has wine, music, dance, loss of ordinary identity. My Nataraja dances the cosmos. Bhairava drinks, sadhus sing, bhang dissolves. Parvati appeared beside him, and they compare me with Tara, with mothers, with local goddesses, with mountain women, with protectors who were worshipped before scholars arranged them into families. She looked towards the south. Don't romanticize purity. She said, South India was never a sealed museum. It faced the sea. Rome came in ships. Christianity came in memory through St. Thomas tradition. Persian Christians came. Jewish traders came. Spices went out. Coins came in. Stories moved with sailors. This was one of the points Asuthama would later mark in red. The idea of a pure South Indian Hinduism untouched by foreign currents was too neat. Kerala and Tamil were coastal worlds. Their temples, saints, forms, rituals, and philosophies grew in contact with maritime exchange. To admit influence was not to insult them, it was to recognize their genius. A living culture observes and transforms. Shiva spoke again. If Nataraja rose strongly in the south, why should we ignore the south's Roman connection? If dance, drinking cults, saints, mother goddess, and maritime cosmopolitanism all, all met there, should a seeker call it coincidence and go home? Aswathama did not answer. The goddess continued. St. Thomas is said to said by tradition to have arrived on the Malabar coast around the first century. Whether every detail is provable is not the point for this inquiry. The point is that South India remembered itself as a place of contact. Persian bishops, East Syrian links, traders, ports, and local communities made the coast a corridor of religious exchange. Then she turned stern. Texts alone are slippery. Anyone can write a book and push it backwards. Cultures have forged documents to claim authority. Religion have written origin. Empires have invented genealogies. If a book is used as a proof of ancient worship, the script, language, inscriptional history, and material context must also be examined. Aswathama mind flashed with example. Forged donation, false decrees, invented lineages, scriptures attributed to scriptures attributed to older names, royal genealogies stressed into the cosmic past. So, is India a copycat civilization? He asked. Shiva laughed. This is a childish word. Rome copied Greece and became Rome. Buddhism observed Hellenistic art and remained Buddhism. Christianity observed pagan festivals and became Christianity. Persia observed Mesopotamian symbols and remained Persia. India observed everything and made it Indian. But remember the difference, Shiva added. Osiris is not simply me. Dionysus is not simply me. I am tied in India to Wang in a way they are not. Dionysus has wine, Bhairava has alcohol, Shiva has bhang. These differences matter. Aswathama saw it suddenly. In India, a moral chemistry had been created. Shiva with bhang, dissolution, compassion, meditation, and softening of the ego. Bhairava with alcohol, danger, war, borderlands, night, aggression, the suspension of restraint. One intoxicant could open the inner sky, another could sharpen violence. This was not a medical conclusion, it was a mythic map. The ghats grew noisy, a group of pilgrims passed singing. When Aswathama turned back, Shiva and Parvati were gone. In the days after vision, Aswathama visited libraries and image archives. He looked at Osiris with patience of a thief studying a lock. He examined the Atef crown, the crook and flail, the green body, the link with death and renewal. He looked at Dionysus, wine, followers, madness, theater, mask, dissolution of civic boundaries. He looked at Aulikteswara, whose compassion heard the cries of the world. He looked at Tara, mother of rescue, crossing, and protection. He did not conclude that they were the same. That would have been lazy. Similarity is not identity. A snake and a river both curve, they are not the same being. But differences does not erase movement. Gods travel in fragments, a gesture travels, a posture travels, a ritual object travels, a story travels and changes gender. A god of death becomes a god of fertility elsewhere. A mother of protection becomes a goddess of learning. A wine ecstasy becomes dance metaphysics. A desert symbols enters a mountain shrine and forgets its first language. Trade is one of the great authors of religion. A merchant does not carry only goods, he carries jokes, songs, anxieties, curses, recipes, charms, and images scratched into memory. Sailors are theologians without footnotes. A coin in a port can do what a missionary cannot. It places a foreign face into hand of a local child. South India returned again and again in this inquiry because it has faced the sea with the confidence. The sea makes purity impossible. A closed land can pretend to be untouched. A port cannot. Every tide brings news. Every sea brings contamination and possibility. This did not reduce South India. It enlarged it. The Tamil coast, Kerala, and the wider southern world did not become great by remaining sealed. They became great by processing contract through uh, local genius. A Roman coin did not make a Tamil poet Roman. A Christian memory did not make a Shiva San Christian. A Greek artistic current did not make a Buddhist image Greek. Contact is raw material, culture is digestion. Aswathama liked the word digestion. It was earthy and honest. Civilizations eat. They absorb what they can use, reject what they cannot, transform what they cannot digest fully, and sometimes fall sick from what they swallow too quickly. Shiva in this vision was not weakened by comparison with Osiris or Dionysus. He became more mysterious. If he could absorb dance, death, fertility, wilderness, intoxication, family, meditation, and destruction, then he was not a narrow tribal god. He was a civilizational stomach. Parvati's warning about false text also grew in his mind. A society that digests influence honestly becomes creative. A society that denies influence must forge purity. It must rewrite books, invent lineages, silence ports, and pretend that gods never travel. But the gods had traveled. Their footprints were in coins, scriptures, rituals, names, and festivals. Aswathama decided that any book on Soma must teach readers to see movement. A plant does not remain in one valley, a word does not remain in one mouth, a god does not remain in one tribe. If Soma was real, it too may have been traveled. Change preparation, change name, change moral meaning, and change master. Then he stopped before a small object, condensed the entire chapter into metal. A Kusan coin bearing Oiso or Viso, a deity whose signs were unmistakably close to Shiva. Trident, bull, ascetic hairs, and in some images, multiple heads or arms. In the early Common Era, Kusan coins from the Bactrian Gandharan world provided some of the closest material evidence for a Shiva like deity beyond the later Sanskritic heartland. These coins did not belong to a sealed Sanskritic temple, they belonged to Afghanistan and northwestern India, to traders, soldiers, monks, imperial treasuries, and borderland. Whether Oiso began as a Central Asian Iranian deity assimilated to Shiva or as Shiva represented in Kusan imperial vocabulary, the iconography showed that Shiva forms were already circulating in Afghanistan and northwestern Indian world by 2nd century CE. To Aswathama, that mattered more than a purity claim. The coin was not a letter myth pretending to be ancient. It was a public metal from a world of movement. For Aswathama, the Vaisu coins were therefore not a minor curiosity. They were a warning against purity stories. A god could stand on coinage systems by Central Asian Empire, Iranian names, Greek script, Indian iconography, and Buddhist era circulation. The image did not ask whether Shiva came from one sealed source. It showed a sacred form being negotiated in public metal. If, if Shiva could appear through such a Kusan and Indian mixture, why should Soma be imagined as a sealed substance frozen in a single valley? The coin strengthened the chapter's lesson. God travels, Names travel, plans travel, and culture often become most themselves when they stop pretending to be pure. From that moment, Astama decided that search for Soma required a method of traveling evidence. He would not accept a plant merely because a modern theory was fashionable. He would not reject a plant merely because it crossed border. He would ask whether the candidate left traces in the language, ritual, archaeology, trade, folk memories, and moral symbolism. Also taught him that a living tradition is not made impure by movement. It is made dishonest when it denies movement after using it. He imagined the coin passing from a Kusan officer to a trader, from a trader to a monk, from a monk to a boatman, from a boatman to household, from a household into the earth. Centuries later, someone would lift in and ask, what is this God doing here with this name, this script, this body, these signs? The coin would answer without anger, I am evidence that your borders are later than your gods. The Oiso coin also helped him understand why images were sometimes more honest than text. Text can be arranged to win arguments, they can be attributed to ancient sages, they can be copied, interpolated, recited, defended, translated, and sanctified. Coins are not pure either, but they are harder to move outside their historical metal. A coin belongs to a ruler, mint, economy, and circulation. It may not prove popular devotion, but it proves public representation. That was enough to trouble the fantasy of religious isolation. Ashwatthama did not deny that bhang too could be misused. Any substance that touches consciousness can serve confusion as easily as insight. But myth does not ask only what a substance does in chemistry. Myth asks what a community teaches people to do with it. A plant surrounded by laughter, devotion, fasting, Shiva, holy and ascetic memory carries a different civilizational grammar from a plant surrounded only by forbidden thrill or secret superiority. The comparison with Dionysus also sharpened the difference between wine and bhang. Wine could make music louder and armies reckless. It could be sacramental, festive, violent, or tragic. Bhang in the Indian imagination around Shiva carried a different symbolic register, cooling, loosening, inward, meditative, socially marginal, and yet ritually familiar. One was not automatically superior to the other, but their mythic meanings were different. Dionysus breaks civic order through wine, Shiva dissolved ego while sitting near us. The first could become a procession, the second could become a silence. This mattered because Soma was also a border. It was plant and god, drink and moon, medicine and power. A border substance naturally attract border gods. A society frightened of dissolution will domesticate the substance. A society hunger for war will make it a warrior's drink. A priesthood seeking monopoly will hide the recipe under ritual language. A poet seeking freedom will call it divine and let the word escape botanical custody. Aswathama now placed Oiso besides Dionysus and Osiris, not as an argument of sameness, but as an argument of movement. Dionysus represented theater, procession, ecstasy, masks, and danger of losing ordinary identity. Osiris represented death, renewal, and fertility. Shiva gathered cremation ground, dance, bhang, wilderness, family, fertility, and destruction. The three were not one god, yet they showed how culture repeatedly created figures who stood at the border between order and dissolution. The border itself seemed sacred. The purity seeker dislikes such evidence because it refuses to flatter one origin. But the seeker of Soma had to love such evidence because it preserved the movement of forms before later schools tied them. The Oiso Kwan suggested that the early centuries of Common Era were not an age of sealed religious boxes. They were an age of contact, translation, borrowing, rivalry, adoption, and renaming. If Shiva like forms could move through cushion coinage, then Soma too might have moved through changing names and preparation before later memory fixed it into a sacred word. In the Kusan world, kings issued coins with Greek, Iranian, Indian, and Buddhist names moving across the same monetary space. A ruler could support Buddhist institution and still place Shiva-like oisu and coinage. A coin could carry Bactrian script and Indian religious imagery. A deity could hold a trident and stand beside a bull while his name came to the eye through a foreign alphabet. For Aswathama, this was not confusion, it was history behaving honestly. The Quan made Aswathama look again at the difference between a claim and object. A claim can be purified in the mouth. An object travels through hands. A claim can say, this form is eternal and untouched. A coin says something more stubborn. This form circulated in the political world among these scripts, these merchants, these armies, these devotional imagination. Also, therefore, became a small museum in metal. It did not ask him to choose between India and Central Asia. It showed him that the question itself was often wrongly framed. End of chapter 4. Thank you.